years now. I spent 6 years as CMO at ShoreTel, and Versatile was a terrific partner at ShoreTel. Has great technical credibility and expertise, as well as very customer satisfaction focus. So when I joined Talari early on, I decided it made sense to reach out to the folks in Versatile, and we're very pleased and proud to have Versatile as one of our reseller partners. So for those who are not familiar with Talari, let me just give you a very brief overview. Talari has been in business for 8 years, and the entire time we've been focused on helping enterprises build better wide area networks. We're not a 1.0 startup. We're on version 4.3 of the product, and we have hundreds of customers spread across thousands of locations in 35 different countries. And we've had the benefit of this customer impact to refine and improve the product along the way. So it now is enterprise tested, and these customers, by and large, are raving fans of what Talari is able to do, and we hope that some of you will join in that group. And as a result of all this, we're seeing increasing adoption in the marketplace. Talari as a company has been very successful. We're effectively doubling revenue year over year. So the marketplace is embracing the solution and increasingly adopting it. So quickly, let's get to, what are the problems we're trying to solve, and what are the issues facing IT today as it relates to the wide area network? And the first has to do with capacity. Most network engineers tell us that the capacity on their WAN is increasing at an increasing rate. It has to do with increased applications like putting voice, video, VDI, CRM, ERP, the alphabet soup of applications. More and more are traversing the WAN, and more becoming critical to business productivity. And we're also seeing more locations and more employees. So what customers are telling us is that they've got this never-ending increase or never-ending demand for increased capacity on their wide area network, and that's a real challenge. We're finding sometimes that IT people are having to say no when the business owners or the business units are asking for certain new applications. People are saying, hey, I want to put video on my WAN, is that okay? And unfortunately, in many cases, the network people are having to say no because they just don't have enough capacity, often running on an MPLS, 1.5 megabit per second T1, and the capacity is becoming an increasing challenge for many IT people. The second issue has to do with reliability, in that the WAN now is increasingly mission critical for the enterprise, as it's the lifeblood that carries those applications that the enterprise is relying on for their business productivity. In the old days, it used to be about disaster recovery and how quickly you could recover from a problem. And nowadays, the real emphasis and the need is for business continuity. The point is not to recover from a disaster, but to make it so that if there is an outage in any underlying element, it is non-business affecting, and the users don't affect it. They don't even notice it. We're seeing that, in the data center, we're achieving very high availability with N+1 redundancy in the data center. So applications are able to be high availability, and the WAN is often single-threaded. And if you've got a situation where a given link goes down and the business applications are affected, that's becoming an increasing problem, and enterprises are trying to solve that problem of reliability and deliver business continuity. The third thing is that these days, everybody in business is about, internet speed, and everything is about agility and moving quickly and adding applications, locations, being very dynamic about how you drive your business. And again, we're hearing from people as it relates to the WAN, in many cases, people that rely on a purely MPLS WAN find themselves constrained by often weeks or months of delivery time, and making adds or changes to support new applications is quite cumbersome. And so businesses are looking to become more agile as it relates to their WAN. And finally, every business is under cost pressure and always looking to reduce costs. And here again, I think in the enterprise, they're looking to spend their money on more productive applications, and they're looking to reduce cost in more of the plumbing and back office functions. Here again, as it relates to, for instance, data storage, we've seen a plunge in storage costs with the newest technology, and also even as it relates to server technologies, we're seeing decreased costs with servers by being able to offer them in data centers. But as it relates to the WAN, we're not seeing that same kind of price decrease. MPLS prices remain quite high. Internet links are quite inexpensive, and so people are looking for ways to bring those inexpensive Internet links to bear to decrease costs, to bring Internet economics to the business. So these are the challenges that IT people are facing today, and Talari addresses all four of these challenges simultaneously. So to get an understanding of what we're all about, essentially Talari is a software-defined thinking WAN. And the point here is that it really is a fundamentally different and better way to design your wide area network. We're basically incorporating inexpensive Internet links and creating a virtual overlay network. Essentially, it's a hybrid network that integrates both MPLS and Internet. And that it's a disruptive solution in that the improvements are dramatic. There's not marginal improvements in capacity or reliability or agility. There are dramatic quantum improvements in each of these areas. So it's a very sort of disruptive new technology, but the beauty of Talari is that it's very non-disruptive in how the enterprise adopts and integrates and transitions to the new software-defined WAN. So essentially the enterprise is able to keep in place their current WAN 100% intact, but then add bandwidth, add capacity, add agility with the addition of Talari. So without talking too much more at a high level, let me just show you kind of a little bit of how it works and what we do. And let's start with a typical WAN before Talari. This is an example where the building on the left is maybe a headquarters. Those two at the top are branch offices, and on the right is the factory. This might be any prototypical kind of an enterprise business. And essentially most enterprises today have as their backbone of their WAN is an MPLS, a traditional MPLS backbone network. And then in addition, most businesses have some form of Internet links that are often in backup mode. Now you notice that the lines, the green line, which is MPLS, is thin, meant to represent usually a 1.5 megabit per second T1 link. And the Internet is often much thicker, often 20, 50, even 100 megabits per second. Also, the Internet is shown as yellow because while the Internet is able to carry traffic, it's not considered to be as reliable and it's not considered to be as secure. So enterprises often consider it kind of a backup available link, but it's not a primary, a trusted link. Now, along the way, enterprises have increasingly moved to data centers, and so they're moving applications from what used to be a phone closet, maybe in a corporate office, into a data center, and this is an option that we support as well. And then also now increasingly business starting to use cloud applications, whether it's various SaaS, et cetera, in public clouds. So this is a typical enterprise. Keep in mind that this number of locations could be 2 or 3 data centers. There could be 10, 20, 50, even 100 branch offices. So this is not a limited number of locations. Talari will support up to 256 locations. So we're able to support very large enterprises, but this is just a simplified prototypical example. Now essentially, what happens with Talari is when you introduce Talari solution, essentially Talari intelligence is put at each location in the wide area network, and the Talari intelligence usually sits on a purpose-built appliance, much like the ShoreTel appliances that many of you are familiar with if you've bought in ShoreTel from Versatile. But we also have virtual versions as well, so it's got flexible deployment models. But generally, there's this Talari intelligence that sits at each location, and it sits on the LAN side of the access router. And essentially, you plug in your MPLS and your various broadband circuits into this Talari appliance, and then the Talari appliance connects into your local area network. So it sits on the LAN side of the access router. So there's a couple of things that happen when this occurs. First of all, now all traffic traversing the WAN goes through on the ingress side, on the transmit side, it goes through one of these Talari appliances, and on the egress side, on the receive side, it goes to another one. So Talari is now managing all the traffic and has visibility to all the traffic going across your wide area network. And it does two things. The first thing that it does is it puts encryption on the traffic, and it's optional at the customer's choice, but it's either 128 or 256-bit AES encryption, so it's very highly secure. And it can be implemented at the location level, at the application level. There's lots of flexibility in how you implement that encryption and that security. But essentially, because of that security, it brings that internet link into more secure and active use. So instead of that internet link, that broadband link, whether it's cable modem or DSL or 3G or Metro Ethernet, whatever that second link might be, it brings it into active status, and it makes it highly secure. So no longer is it just waiting for backup. It now is carrying traffic as part of your wide area network. The second thing that the Talari appliances do is they put a small tag on every packet that traverses the network. So on every single packet that goes across the network receives a small tag, and that tag is essentially a timestamp and a sequence number. And so on the receive side, based on that timestamp, Talari appliance is able to understand the packet loss, the latency, and the jitter of every link in the network. So it actually measures latency in real time with every single packet. So we know about how much packet loss is occurring on that MPLS link and also how much packet loss is occurring on that internet link. As well, we know the exact precise level of latency, the amount of time it takes for each of those packets to get from one box to the other. So Talari has this very detailed, very accurate, real-time understanding of the quality of every link at every location in your network. And essentially what Talari does is creates a virtual overlay network that abstracts itself from the underlying physical connections and essentially creates this overlay network, and these appliances, these Talari appliances, share this knowledge about the quality of each link with each other. So now we have this virtual overlay network where every appliance knows about the availability and the quality of each path through the network from one location to the other. And as a result then, Talari essentially is able to establish what we call conduits between each location. And it's fully meshed so that every location is able to communicate with every other location through one of these Talari conduits. And so essentially these conduits are the aggregate sum total of all of the underlying network capacity. It includes the ability to route packets over the MPLS link like you might have done before, but it also is able to route packets over the internet link as well. So now you have both links in active status, all of the capacity available to these conduits, and these conduits then are able to, or these appliances then are able to utilize these conduits to make sure that the traffic gets across the network effectively. Now all of this exists only because they're supporting applications. At the end of the day, the reason the WAN even exists is to support applications. And so the applications are very varied, and they run from file transfers all the way down to voice and video. And what's interesting is that these applications have very, very different characteristics. That bulk file transfers, for instance, are not very sensitive to latency, but they look for very large bandwidth. And on the other extreme, voice, as an example, is very low bandwidth, but it requires low latency and low packet loss. So based on, basically, Talari is able to sort this traffic into different categories, 3 categories initially. There's then 16 sub-buckets of categories, so you can get very granular about defining the traffic. And then essentially, the virtual layer, Talari then routes the traffic based on rules that are set up by the enterprise, rules that we have as basic defaults, but that the enterprise can then tweak the rules to customize to meet the particular enterprise's requirements. So let's just take 2 examples that will help bring this to life. We hope in a longer meeting, our objective here is if you have interest, we can meet with you separately. We're happy to come to your office and give you more detailed kind of descriptions and demonstrations. But for now, let's just talk about kind of 2 examples of what might be flowing across the network. And let's start with one which is on one extreme, voice, right? Many of you are using PBXs of various kinds. In many cases, it's ShoreTel. Talari supports all voice from all PBXs, doesn't matter. But what we know is that voice is very latency sensitive, it's very packet loss sensitive. So the rules set up within Talari is to always give voice the highest priority and never let bulk bits get in the way of voice bits in getting across the network. And also the rule is to make sure that those bits take the lowest packet loss and the lowest latency route across the network. So if it happens to be that your MPLS network is low latency and low packet loss and your voice traffic can keep flowing across that MPLS network, like it did before. So down in the bottom from the corporate office here, it would be using the MPLS. But if along the way an MPLS link goes bad, if you look at the bottom diagram, that MPLS link went red. If that happens, even during an existing call, the Talari box that is sending it, say it's going from the corporate office to the branch office in the upper left, it would have otherwise been going over the MPLS. As soon as Talari notices that link goes bad, Talari starts sending future packets over the internet link, and it goes to that same branch office, and a call is not even interrupted. So even if a link goes down hard, active calls continue to be routed because in sub-seconds, Talari is able to route around problems. So it's not waiting for an outage and in some number of seconds or minutes recovering and causing you to reroute calls or to reestablish calls. It reroutes on a packet-by-packet basis in real time around outages so that calls are not dropped. Now you notice this is red there, but also in some cases it could be yellow, and that is perhaps your MPLS link has not gone down, but it's starting to experience sustained packet loss or sustained latency. There again, Talari is able to notice that in real time because it's measuring latency and it's measuring packet loss. And if it discovers that the internet link is better, it will then start routing those future packets across the internet link, again, without even dropping the call. We've had situations from customers who have called us up and submitted trouble tickets saying, hey, you know, something's wrong with Talari because my voice traffic is now going over my internet link instead of my MPLS link. And we look into it, and what we discover is that's not a bug. That's the feature, that the rule is not to go across the most expensive link, and it's not to go across the MPLS link. The rule is to go across the best link. And in many cases, we're finding the internet link has quality characteristics that can even exceed the MPLS link. But in any case, Talari boxes in real time are making that decision to make sure that the packets are always going across the best link in order to provide the lowest latency and the lowest packet loss. Another example of what we can do with voice traffic is we can duplicate those packets and send them over both links. So if you've got a high capacity internet link that's otherwise not used, Talari will actually duplicate the packet, send it over both links. It's a race to get to the other side, and the first arriver gets used, the late arriver is discarded. So in that case, we're not even waiting to discover a problem, and unless the individual packet is lost on both links, your packet loss essentially goes to 0, and your latency is the fastest of the two links in real time, and that can shift back and forth during the call because we actually can use both links simultaneously. So that's an example of how we give bulletproof, high reliability, high quality to your very important voice traffic. Now, on the other extreme is bulk traffic, and while bulk is not as high priority, we don't underserve it. We actually serve it well as well because it doesn't care so much about latency and packet loss, but it cares about total capacity. So in that case, we utilize unused capacity because rather than waiting until nighttime to do that big bulk file transfer that some customers do, with Talari, you're able to go ahead and send that bulk file when it's ready to go, but you're confident it's not going to interfere with those higher priority bits, but it is going to use the available capacity. So as the MPLS link utilization goes up and down, Talari is filling in that capacity with the bulk traffic behind it to make maximum use of your network. But not only that, Talari is also able to spread that bulk file across multiple links. So not only is it using the available capacity on the MPLS, it's also using the available capacity on the internet. And so now you've got both links in aggregate bearing the traffic, and on the receive side, it's reassembled and presented back to the application as a single stream. Now, many customers ask us, wow, that's pretty slick. If you can do that, could I add a second broadband link, and can you spread my bulk file among multiple links? And the answer is yes. Many customers, in fact, go ahead and introduce a second broadband link. Often DSL or cable modem is inexpensive for $50 or $100 a month. And so customers with large file transfer needs or looking for more reliability sometimes add a second link. And now if you've got two 50 megabit per second links, you can achieve 100 megabit per second throughput by aggregating the capacity of both links. Now, I want you to be clear that we're not anti-MPLS. We support MPLS. This is a hybrid example of MPLS, but some customers ask us, well, heck, if I've got these links and my internet links are pretty good, do I really need MPLS? And the answer is, well, it's really up to you, the customer, if you choose to continue with MPLS. But many customers along the way experiment by turning off MPLS just for a day or a week and see what happens. And the users don't notice it, because if you've got two good quality broadband links, they really don't need MPLS anymore, and they get the opportunity to get off of the MPLS treadmill. In some cases, they can actually add a third MPLS link, or rather a third internet link. The other thing I would make you aware of is we have this product called Aware, which is a unified platform that helps you from a single pane of glass to administer and manage the entire network, so you're not out there kind of individually managing each box. And also Aware collects information from the network for capacity planning, vendor management, SLA enforcement. You have an accurate understanding of the quality of each link. So when you go back to enforce SLAs, you can talk to your vendors about the packet loss, latency, and jitter that were experienced on those links. And it can be stored for up to a year, so you have a lot of ability to go back and do kind of capacity planning and other analysis. Specifically, we've got lots and lots of customers that have adopted Talari, as I mentioned, across many verticals. Really, it's a very horizontal product where anybody's business that has a wide area network can benefit from Talari across multiple verticals. This is a sampling, a subset of some of our customers, existing customers who are running us in their production networks. Up our left, you see in the Ricoh and Komatsu. Tesla is one of our more recent customers. On the left here, you see in legal, Dwayne Morris, Skadden Arps. If you look at this, you'll see many logos you'll probably recognize in businesses that have not only purchased from Talari, but come back and purchase more over time. It's very normal for customers to deploy Talari in a subset of their locations at first and then add over time. And the vast majority of customers have added Talari to new locations over time, and the vast majority are raving fans. If you're interested in talking to any customers, we're happy to put you in touch with them. They're very available. They're very interested and willing to talk about Talari. Again, for most of them, they were unaware of the possibility of a software-defined WAN, and once they deployed it, they're so delighted with it and so happy with it. The fact that they've got dramatic improvements in capacity, high reliability, because every link would have to be down to lose the location. They've got much more agility because they can respond more quickly, and altogether it's lower cost. So those four problems we addressed that I mentioned in the beginning, customers are so happy with the way we address all four of them. They're generally raving fans, and they're quite happy to become references and talk to our prospective customers. So if you're considering Talari, let us know. We'll be happy to put you in touch with any one of these customers, and they'll be happy to talk to you about their experience with Talari. So essentially, in conclusion, really what we're about is providing this thinking WAN. And for the IT professional, I'm guessing most of you on this call are IT professionals, we provide this. It's your ability to be proactive, to be decisive, to be appreciated, to be less often getting beaten up by prospects or by your users when an outage happens. Generally today, I expect most of you have experienced outages, and when it happens, it's usually kind of hair on fire, kind of people screaming and yelling and wanting to get things fixed. And so IT gets this high capacity, responsive, highly reliable network, and they get to be much more proactive participants in the enterprise, and they're not kind of hiding out hoping to avoid people noticing them. The end users often don't even know about Talari, but they experience crystal clear calls, high availability, great video conferences, lack of outages, and in the end, the business benefits because it's got a great ROI. The savings of not continuing on the MPLS treadmill and ordering more and more and more MPLS can provide tremendous savings, and businesses generally really like that. So with that, I think I will turn it back over to Frank. I don't know if there's any questions that you have. Again, we're happy to answer more questions. We're happy to stay past the 30 minutes if there are more questions, but we want to at least open it up right now to see to what extent if there's anything that I missed that maybe I could cover now. So Frank, would you take back over, and any questions?
Sure, Kevin. We actually have a handful of questions. Let me start with the first one, which is, what is the average cost of, bear with me here, folks, of an appliance that can aggregate 50 to 100 megabits?
So Talari has a line of appliances. The physical appliances start with our, smallest branch office location that list price for $4,000, right up to a data center that handles, 8 connections, dual power supply. It's 2 rack units. It handles 3 gigabits per second, and that box is $90,000. So essentially, depending on each location and what its requirements are. We have an appliance that's custom designed for that location. And essentially what our customers tell us is that the return on investment is often less than a year. It depends on your circumstances, but if you're about to buy more MPLS because you have a capacity challenge, our suggestion is slow down. Don't buy more MPLS. Don't rip out your existing MPLS, but just don't buy more. Utilize that broadband that's sitting there already, or deploy new broadband and deploy Talari, and the money you save on the upgrade of MPLS can often pay back in less than a year, or if you choose to lease it, it can be a 0-day payback on day one. The lease cost of the entire Talari solution can be less than the added cost you would have otherwise spent on MPLS. So we can go detailed with you on a case-by-case basis, but it has a very, very good ROI.
Thank you, Kevin. You actually answered a couple of the questions in that one answer right there. Another one that's you have not mentioned yet is, does Talari work with WAN optimization products like, say, like Riverbed?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'd say probably, somewhere north of 50% of our customers, it might be approaching 60 or 70% of our customers use some form of WAN optimization. Often it's Riverbed. And Talari fully supports WAN optimization. We do no harm to WAN optimization. We completely support it. Essentially, WAN optimization, if you think about it, is a way to take what would have otherwise been a larger data stream, say a 5 megabits per second stream, and crushing it down using dedupe and caching to be able to fit it over a thinner 1.5 megabit per second pipe. So many of our customers have already tried WAN op, and WAN op does its thing. It does a beautiful job of compressing large files and avoiding sending duplicate information. But WAN op doesn't do anything for real time. It can't compress, it can't dedupe real time things like voice, and it also has challenges with security. So once customers deploy WAN op and kind of squeeze everything they can from it, Talari simply passes that optimized traffic across not only the thin pipe that WAN op helps people, but now it gives it a larger network to send that traffic over. So essentially, while WAN op compresses the traffic, Talari provides a fatter pipe and a more reliable pipe to put that traffic over. So we are 100% compatible with all forms of WAN op. Most of our customers use it today and experience no challenges in continuing to use it.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. And we have time for one more question. So let me ask you this: Can Talari provide quality of service QoS over broadband only network?
Yes, definitely yes. In most cases, the typical deployment models, people continue to use MPLS and then they add broadband. But as I mentioned, one customer of ours, Equity Office, for instance, Chicago, started that way. They started with MPLS, they added broadband. Once they got comfortable with Talari after a month or two, they were the ones that I remember personally asking the question, hey, can we add a second broadband link? And we said, fine. And after a while, they said, why are we still spending all this money on MPLS? And they eventually decommissioned it for a day, and then since they didn't get any complaints, when the contract came up, they canceled the MPLS contract, and now their standard deployment model is either 2 or 3 broadband connections at every location in their network. And they also have an issue where they have to spin up new locations quickly because they're buying and selling buildings. And they also found that MPLS sometimes would take 6 or 8 weeks. Sometimes it was the long pole in the tent to starting a new location. They do TIs and architecture and build out and move in, and the network was the last item that was slowing them down. So now Equity Office goes straight with 2 or 3 broadband internet connections, and with Talari as their software-defined WAN, they have complete security and a complete mesh between every location. So there is no need for MPLS in order to provide QoS. So QoS is inherent to Talari. As I mentioned, there's the 3 large buckets of real-time, interactive, and bulk, and then 16 sub-buckets, and the enterprise has tremendous granularity in their ability to prioritize traffic and say, never let this traffic get in the way of this traffic except under certain circumstances. People can even prioritize certain voice over other voice. If you've got a call center, you can make that call center the highest priority and then internal voice traffic lower priority. So you have lots and lots of flexibility to define your priority, and the Talari software-defined thinking WAN enforces that quality of service and makes sure that always that the rules are enforced and those rules reflect the QoS requirements of the application as defined by the enterprise. And again, keep in mind, we have lots of defaults. We have years and years of experience, so deploying this is relatively straightforward. We come in, we ask what apps you have, we automatically help you sort them into which buckets. We have recommendations in terms of the rules or things around duplicating voice packets and VDI packets. So it's very straightforward to implement our rules. It's also a tremendous amount of knobs that the enterprise can customize those rules to their particular needs. But I guess the short answer is yes, we do fully support QoS over broadband-only networks, and many, many customers today enjoy that and have tremendous benefits and cost savings as a result.
Thank you very much, Kevin. So I think we're going to wrap up the webinar, and for all the attendees currently still on, please reach out to your sales representative and ask them about the no-charge complimentary feasibility and ROI assessment that is going to be offered to everybody on this call today. So again, Kevin, thank you very much, and everybody for attending, thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye now, thanks.